You just posed two different things. How have the black women been weaponized against the black men? The answer is yes, very much so. And to me, that actually opens up why they are out of line. They're out of line because we are out of an alignment, period, as a people.
We grew up in the hood like most black folks. Little did they know it comes gorillas from the south coast, breaking the booze out, living and working in many places. Black rain for not five, explosion posse going to switch with this revolutionary tactic. Them flips up out of my mattress. I practice pro-blackness, not to say I'm prejudice when screaming darkness. No, I'm not suicidal, but I'm dying for my people. No, I'm not lying to get I distinguish good from people. I used to wear long crowns, align my mind to burn from ignorance. I cut away my perm, I got strong, some can't deal with this mentality. Thinking I'm weak, I'm not no gangster. It won't be televised how many times my posse pull a trigger. Lord, oh Lord, am I the devil too, or am I really the son? Unto the throne, son, the fuck is true image of you, a portrait that I could not never see. Dumb as I may be, I never go, I kamikaze G, genocide.
This is Brother Sight calling out of Texas. I'm sitting here with Brother E calling out of Florida.
What's up?
And Brother War calling out of California.
All power to the people.
And today's subject matter today, there has been a conversation on the internet, on YouTube, this conversation on Facebook. This conversation is basically this. One side of the conversation is women in general, black women in particular, are basically out of line. And it's time for men to stand up, grab their nuts, and start calling women out on this. That's one side of the conversation. The other side of that conversation is that no black man should publicly disrespect or attack black women for the things that white racism has placed on black people. Essentially, that's just in a nutshell, those are the two dynamics of that conversation. And today we're going to talk about that conversation. We're going to kind of discuss it, give a little feedback on it, give a little commentary on it. So the first thing I'm gonna throw out there in order to start this thing up is all black women out of line. And I'm gonna open that up to you, Brother Ward. Let me see what you have to say. All black women out of line. Have black women been weaponized against black men or against the community itself? Are they out of line?
Well, let me start off by saying this. You just posed two different things. How have the black women been weaponized against the black men? The answer is yes, very much so. And to me, that actually opens up why they are out of line. They're out of line because we are out of an alignment, period, as a people. Being out of an alignment, yes, the black woman plays a role in being out of that alignment. What I don't agree with is anything that will add to that misalignment and not addressing that misalignment from its root core. The root core to me, when we talk about this misalignment, is not bashing. Now, not to say that we can't in order to put something in its place, you don't want to destroy, because you do. Oftentimes, in order to build something, you must destroy first. But what I'm saying with that is that the intention has to be to build it up. So if we're doing it and we're not doing it from an intentional perspective, and if we're doing it from a perspective that is not allowing them to recognize that alignment that we're working toward, work has to be done on both sides of the fence. Whether we're talking about the female or the male, because that's the thing. We are out of alignment, period. And we have been weaponized against each other, period. So we must first and foremost, to me, recognize that we are at war. Once we recognize that we are at war, then we have to look around the battlefield and find out, well, who is an ally and who is our enemy. So start identifying who you at war with. And then when we look at the situation and find out that we've been placed at war with one another and get past that point, then we really see that we've been placed at war against one another because we've been weaponized against each other. That is not the war that we're supposed to be fighting. So then we come to the conclusion that this is all part of the setup to keep us against each other, to keep us disunified as is what I like to get into, as the individual, as the family unit, and then as a community. So in order to destroy the community, you have to destroy the family unit. And in order to destroy the family unit, you got to get the individuals to continue to operate as competitive as possible against one another. And so from that perspective, I do feel they are out of line and out of alignment. Now, is it our place to put them back in alignment? Yes, it is. But we, again, have to identify with the fact that we have been put at war against one another in order to do so. That's my answer to that.
And you know, and I agree with that. I agree. E, you got anything to say on that before I get into this?
No, I agree.
I agree with that. Now you say that we don't want to bash, we don't want to attack. I kind of, you know, we us three did a video on my channel, and I'll leave a link in the comments to that video. We did a video where we showed a video of a young sister being asked a question, and it was on a game show. I think the kids say the darndest things, and essentially the sister basically said, the young sister, little kid, she essentially said that she believed that a man's job in a relationship was to buy her a whole lot of material things, Gucci and Prada and all that nonsense, and that a woman's job was just to look good in it. The only thing she had to bring to the table was wearing the stuff that the man provided and look good. Now, I'm not saying that all women think like this child, but the truth is, I think the reason why a particular brother has gained so much traction on YouTube coming from this viewpoint is because men for so long have started becoming fed up, and he ain't made this point of view up. That's the cold thing about this guy. He actually didn't make this point of view up. You can tell if you've done any real research into studying Shahrazad Ali, looking at her old interviews, reading her book, Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, you could tell that he read the book. It ain't hard to see he read her book. And it ain't hard to see that he studied her videos, because most of the stuff that he say about women being out of line is verbatim her. It's straight from her. You could tell he researched her. So it ain't just a black man coming out at women with this. It's a woman previously came out at women against this. I think it was Brother E that gave me the book years ago when first time I read the book. But so the women have been in this role and in this position, and men have come to the point where they're kind of getting fed up, but for some reason men are afraid to speak on it. Men are afraid to say anything. I don't know what it is. I mean, I got a close brother of mine. I was talking about this a few weeks ago, months ago, whenever it was, and he told me, "Hey, you sounding gay." He told me I sound gay because I was speaking out against women and the nonsense that women be on. So this is the type of furor that men, it seems like men have. And I think that's why this conversation is gaining so much traction, because men are becoming kind of fed up with it. Men are becoming kind of sick with it. So I think women have to be put on the spot for this. They have to be called out. I did a video myself called The War of the Sexes on my channel. And I'll link that video in the comments as well. But I did a video called War of the Sexes. Before I even heard Kevin Samuels, before I even heard of a Kevin Samuels, before I watched in his video, and I'm gonna tell you where the idea came from. When I first started my YouTube channel, and I was looking for some content, so I came up with the idea to do a video basically on the 10 major things that a woman should ask when she starts dating someone. I was gonna do a video called that. So I asked a question on my Facebook page. I asked a question: what are the first things that you ask a man that you're starting to date? And all of the questions coming from the women were negative. All of them were negative. They was, are you gay? Have you ever stole a woman's credit card? How long was you in It was all negative. Like, men are the most evil and hateful, conniving things on the planet, and that they had to be on guard against men. And my response was like, I said, God, do y'all even like men? That's what I said. Do y'all even like men? Because everything here is negative. And so so I changed the title of what I was going to do, and I called it The War of the Sexes. And I talked about it. It wasn't to bash women. And it wasn't to bash men, because as War said, we all have a role that we play in this. We all have a role that we play in this. But women have taken a position, to me, that's extremely aggressive and uncooperative toward men. And
Okay.
and that was my view. Y'all, I guess I must have blew the show when I said that. That's it. That's all
No,
needs to be said.
you pause, and when you pause, I'm like, okay, are we passing the mic or what? Because it's almost like you pause without getting your point across.
No, I made the point. That's my point. I feel that women are too aggressive. I feel like women are the new men. You just said that the new generation of boys and got weak. I feel like the new generation of women have turned to men.
Now you open up another can of worms, because see, mind you, going back to saying that the women has been weaponized against us, you're absolutely right from that. And that is part of the problem as well, because the women have become the new men. But I feel like even on that same point, that's not even being that's not even being symbolic. That's just straight up. That is how a lot of them are approaching the situation now. But even with that, I think that plays a part in the weaponization to prevent us from creation, prevent us from creating a new stock of our people, and to keep reproduction going and to keep our population up. So to me, all of that again has to do with the fact that I believe, in my perspective and take on this, is that we have been placed on the battlefield against each other by the actual enemy. And what we have to do is we have to put each other back in alignment. So it's not that I'm not saying we don't put them in their place, but recognize what we're talking about is we talk about the male and female both being out of place, out of alignment. So whatever I say to her has to do with the corrective alignment necessary to put me back in my place as well. So when we operating like this, when we need to be back like this and equally yoked, that's the end game. And so all I'm saying about that is making sure that our approach is productive. Not to say that either one of the people that we talked about in terms of the opening discussion of this is not on the right path. What I don't agree with is the fact that oftentimes, because people don't understand psychology for the most part or understand it, is that it has to be either this way or that way. And that to me is the problem, because when we don't grasp the concept, we tend to either go with one way all the way or go the other way all the way. So we become extreme and we become polarized, not recognizing that both are providing information and key tools that we need to use to pull ourselves and pull ourselves forward. So it's not to say that Dr. Umar and Kevin are not both actually saying the same thing in a certain capacity, or both preaching or providing the right information. It is allowing ourselves to be used as either you go this way or you go that way, when in essence, both brothers have the intent of pulling us together and making us better people, so that we can that we can unify. So then what I would say from that standpoint is start off jumping into discussion. We're recognizing, like I said, is that, hey, they have pinned us to be at war against one another. Let's recognize it. Let's recognize that right now, the black man and the black woman are at each other's throats and are against each other. And that's where they want us to be. Once we step back from that, once we recognize that the whole point is for us to eradicate and destroy each other, then we can have the dialogue to go into how we correct the position. But if we don't recognize first and foremost that they have turned us against each other, then what happens is I'm going to go out. I may come out of my corner, or you may come out of your corner. And in the end, neither one of us is going to budge, because we've allowed ourselves to continue to be polarized. And if we keep going down the perspective of being polarized, then it's going to either be this way or that way. And when people get caught up in that aspect of the message, then their perspective hadn't changed. And so there's not any real growth from that perspective. Because if a woman is being discussed or talked to become a better woman, well, a better woman in the eyes of who? See, now we have to go back to identity. So from whose perspective are you becoming a better person? And what's your motivation? Is your motivation all simply about your feelings? Or is it about the what I like to say, the elevation of our people and the elevation of our race? Are we coming together as a family unit so that we can what? Build a progressive and a non-dysfunctional family so that we can build a more progressive and a more functional community? Because to me, it's about the end result on that. The end result is self-determination as a people. In order to achieve that, then obviously the individual, the family, and the community must heal. In order for the community to heal, the family has to heal. In order for the family to heal, the individual has to heal. And so all I'm saying is making sure that our people recognize that we have been pinned in a corner against each other, and then open a dialogue on how we work on our alignments. Now, that's the point I wanted to make on that.
And so I'm going all the way back to the beginning. So how do you make that? How do you do that until you call out the factors that's causing these problems? Because, okay, I concede that, yes, I agree with you that the woman has been weaponized against the man. We can see it in, if we read the Willie Lynch letter. We can see it if we read William Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse. And in the last chapter in that book talks about that social automation. It talks about it, it breaks it down, it builds on it. We can see it, making the man weak and putting the woman out in the front. And this wasn't just talking about Black people, they were talking about people in general and how they was going to control the society. This is talking about that. But even though we can't really fix it or start making efforts toward real change until we identify it and call it out. We got to call this stuff out. If women are out of line, if they are out of line and they are operating and acting in a way that basically makes them unfit for real relationships, makes them unfit for marriage, we have to call that out, because the truth is, the whole reason we even having this conversation, because if we talk about uplifting the community, the fact is you got to start with the family. There is no community if the family ain't right. The truth is, as messed up as the community is, if the family structure was back intact and back in line with each other, the community would change overnight. That's just a fact. There could be no messed up community where there are functional families, where there are really truly functional families, fathers and mothers. Even in the Black community, for the most part, you don't even really have fathers and mothers or actual family anymore. You have baby mama, baby daddy. You have women that are so unfit for relationships that she may be a woman with 5 kids and 6 baby daddies, and then want E's ass to come in and marry her and provide to her what those other 5 or those other 6 dudes were able to provide, because one of the kids got 2 daddies. One of the kids got 2 daddies. The real daddy who's been in prison that don't nobody know about it, and the fake daddy that she put it on. You know what I'm saying? So this is the situation. This is the ill situation that we're kind of dealing with. This is that situation, and that's why I think that it has to be called out, because we have. I think another thing that we've done, we've made a mistake. We made a mistake. Us as whatever the hell we want to call ourselves, activists, revolutionaries. Say the most revolutionary thing you can call yourself as an Africans, whatever the hell we want to call ourselves, is we gave the title of queen and goddess to women before they earned it. That's my viewpoint. I think that was a mistake. Just like when I was in prison and I first started reading 5% concepts and ideas, and a lot of the brothers were running around, they was niggered up. They was niggered out the game, but they would run around talking about the Black man is God, I'm God. And I used to look at it and be like, nigga, you ain't God. That's something that has to be earned. That's something that has to be built on. That's something that has to be manifested in conduct and character. That's not just something you can claim and think is all right, especially if you still run around doing what niggas do. You can't claim God. And these sisters, we done put the crown of queen on sisters that don't deserve that crown, in my viewpoint. And to make it clear for you, Ward, that was my point. I made it, and the mic has been passed. So all right. Make it very clear.
I like when I can detect a mic drop. So I do not at any point disagree with it being called out. My position has to do with recognizing, for instance, let's just take this whole platform that we're talking about. I look at this from the psychological warfare aspect. And in saying that, I say this. Brother Kevin is doing a fantastic job on calling it out, because what he's doing is getting them to go inside themselves and look at themselves and recognize that there are things that I need to change about myself, whether we're talking about surface things or deep down internal things that they have to work on, and recognize that they cannot pedestal themselves and that be the expectation of a lifestyle. Dr. Omar, on his point, I feel like he is breaking down the psychology of warfare, of how sick the environment is that we live in, and addressing those things. The problem to me comes in the fact that somebody somewhere decided to utilize one person's I would call weak side against another person's weak side, and created an atmosphere to make the two bump heads and actually go at each other. Because when that takes place, again, what you're doing at this point is working toward a polarization. Now, this done turned into a drama show.
Yeah.
So now we got to step back, and now we got the two people that are providing the information and providing the dialogue and providing a source and a solution for addressing the ills of our community are bumping heads with each other. And so me from the outside, when I look at that, the only thing I can think to do now is pick a side. And so if I'm picking a side, when you have both elements providing a necessary element that needs to come to the table in order to correct us, now all of a sudden you're creating polarization again. And by creating polarization, what I saw is I saw two powerful people being very progressive in their element, in their perspective, and I wanted to throw a monkey wrench in the game and cause them to come at each other so I can create a division. They were bringing unity to the table, and I needed to find a way to break up that unity. And so what I did, I utilized a psychological or emotional weakness to cause the two people out to come against each other. And so then everybody that's receiving information from both of them are going to now want to start picking a side. And when you do that, it don't matter which side you pick. What you're doing now is you're dividing yourself. You're dividing the information. You're dividing the subject matter, and you re-dividing the community again. So literally, you come that by allowing that kind of perspective to come into the fold, I'm destroying everything that they both building. And that is the problem I got. The problem I got is being pinned into a situation because it was not identified. Where I'm getting at, it was not identified that what you're dealing with first and foremost is the fact that the two perspectives, male, female, in terms of that characterization, has been put against each other at war. So when you step back and you say, hey, this is the thing. We have been trained and taught to be at each other's throats in order to destroy the family unit. So we are on a battlefield at war with one another, when in essence we are at war with a larger enemy. But that enemy has not even had to enter the battlefield and have casualties on their side, because they got us fighting each other and creating casualties amongst ourselves. And then got us in a situation where now the woman has to be the man. And so now you have a future generations that has been eradicated and eliminated. So to me, that's the powerful message that we got to take away, is that I've effectively polarized the current generation, and I prevented a future generation from developing, because I'm taking the reproductive or the creation element out of the fold. So it basically nullifies the perspective, no matter whose side you want to take, because guess what? You're taking a side when both perspectives are coming with some powerful information. So we cannot allow ourselves to be utilized against ourselves. And that's all I'm talking on. So from that point, that to me is a thing. We can't allow ourselves to be pulled apart. It's not about all this way or all that way. I don't think either one can be put in a position where one is better than the other. Let's not let them do that game to us. And that's my thing. Let's don't turn this into a drama, even though we're dealing with elements of a drama, because again, we have to, like you say, we have to call it out. And when you call it out and you cast it out, there's going to be some confrontation. But let's not make that confrontation, that necessary confrontation, a drama. So it ain't meant to be, even though it can be entertaining because it's a mental stimulation, let's not make the point of that mental stimulation for the sake of healing be a drama so that it in itself, the end result is entertainment. Because then you just lost the message and you just lost the perspective and the point of bringing us together as a family unit so that we can rebuild and build up our communities. Now I might drop it.
Now I can agree with that, no doubt about it. I mean, that is that's the most logical way to go about it. That's not going to happen because this is America. So, but that's the most logical way to go about it. Now, now let me say, I'm going to say this because I said things on the female perspective and the wrongs that women have done. And I want to ask this, if they have been weaponized against us, what do we do to change that? Because now it's at a point where a lot of times women won't even listen. They won't even listen when you're attempting to give that education or express those. I was talking to a sister one time, sister that I've dated and that I was in a relationship with, and we was talking and I was trying to explain to her because she's very combative, very combative. If you tell her the sky blue, she gonna argue with you, tell you it's turquoise. If you say water is wet, she gonna argue and says moist. No, she's not. She believes that it's weakness and it makes her a strong woman to have her own viewpoint, and not to agree with you, even if what you're saying is absolutely right and correct. I cannot just agree. So I told her, I was explaining to her, and I've seen this in a lot of women, but I'm using her as a point of view. But so I tried to explain this to her. I said that a man and a woman can never have a good union if they're uncooperative. They have to be able to come together and cooperate with each other. Oh, and she flew off the handle. She did not like that word cooperate, just like a lot of women don't like the word submission. They don't like those words because those words say, and you might, the first thought you might have in your mind is, oh, they don't like those words because they don't want to be dominated. But the truth is they don't like those words because they want to do the domination. They want to do some dominating because they don't like those words. So I tell the sister that there could be no real union without cooperation. She said, no, it ain't supposed to be cooperation. She said it's supposed to be compromise. That's what she told me. And I said, that's a problem. No team can win in any game they playing if they on the field and they haven't agreed on what roles need to be played. The quarterback and the wide receiver are cooperating with each other. They're not out there compromising, negotiating what roles to play. They on the field cooperating with each other, and through that cooperation, they can win championships. But see, that's what I'm talking about that combativeness, about that need to resist any kind of cooperation. Then you have the ideal of the alpha female. Then you have this idea, and I ain't finna go into that yet, because I'm saying so much. I want to be able to touch that on its own. But with the ideal of the alpha female, what does that do to the male in the relationship? Because it can't be two alphas. Can't exist. That cannot exist. So if she's the alpha, he has to automatically become the beta. He automatically has to do that. That's the role he has to play. If a woman brings, and I believe in spiritual energy, I'm going to get into that a little bit, and I don't believe that a male masculine energy or feminine energy is either less or more than the other. I believe that they both are equivalent to each other and equally important. I don't believe in that equality nonsense. That's why I use the word equivalent. A triangle and a square are not equal because they're different shapes, but they are equivalent because they are both shapes. And they both have positions that they are better suited to play. A female have positions and roles in the family and in the community that she is best suited to play. And it would be insane and it would hurt the community to try to force her out of those roles. And a male has positions in the community and in the family that he's best suited to play. And it would be insane and a detriment to the community and the family to try to force him out of that role and to force a female into those roles. It would be insane to do such a thing. So I'm not talking about no dominance of one gender over the other. I'm not talking about anything to deal with anything like that. But when a woman brings an over expression of masculine energy to a relationship, nature always seeks a balance. It always seeks equilibrium. It always seeks to balance itself, to harmonize itself. So if E gets in a relationship with a woman with an overabundance of masculinity, E is going to become a broad. It's just going to happen. E is going to start in order to balance that out. E has to start manifesting more feminine energy. E has to do it, and that's they either not going to get along and constantly fight, or E is going to become the female in the relationship, and they're going to have balance. And this is that perversion that starts happening in these relationships nowadays, that the women want to operate and act as men. But I'm gonna pass it back to you, War. And the question is, if this is the problem and women have been weaponized against men, how do we fix it? Because and let me say this. I know I'm talking. I'm going to talk. I'm going to say this. I got to say this. E ain't talking, so I got to talk for me and E. So I got to say this. I agree. I believe women have been weaponized. I think women were weaponized in order to turn men into what they are. And everything and every complaint that a woman may have on a man, he has become because of that weaponization. I believe that. That weak, soft, sorry man, that dude laying up on the couch, drinking a 4-down, playing the game all day, refuse to get up and go to work. I think that's part of that weaponization. And females without the knowledge of it themselves are complacent in this. They took part in it. But what can we do to try to change this thing around? That's the question I'm asking.
All right, let me start with this. I will first start by saying the first thing that you got just goes back to the concept of psychology. It's this. If I am engaging in a situation with you and my guard is up, I'm already on the defensive, which means that I expect to be attacked. And being on the defensive, my natural response is I will not accept defeat. I will not accept being hit and not hit you back. I want to win this battle. So right then and there, it goes right back to what I initially talked about in not identifying the true enemy, not identifying who I am actually at war with. So you have to find a way to take that defense down, and you by disarming the situation. You can't feed into that energy. What happens is if we feed into the same energy we're trying to defeat, that's like hate fighting hate. If you feed into that same energy, then there's no way for you to deal with that. From a martial science standpoint, we get into what I refer to as borrowed energy. So when they come in at me with that powerful blow, if I want to come meet force with force like this, it's just going to explode. But if I take that energy and I utilize it, it's called borrowed energy. So what I do by borrowing that energy, I allow them to come in that conversation or come in that manner that they come in, and then I complement that. Going back to you using the word compliment, I complement that, which will take their defenses down, because all of a sudden in their mind or in their eyes, I'm agreeing with them. And if I'm agreeing with them, all of a sudden they don't have a defense anymore. So from a psychological standpoint, I'm upfront agreeing with them, allowing them to take their position, which even though I'm going to put them back in alignment, the end result is that position that they're in is not the correct position to be in. But for now, I'm going to let my ego aside and I'm going to take that position with them so that they can hear themselves in order to be able to allow me my time and hear me out without already being in a defensive posture, ready to strike.
They still ain't gonna hear you, Wall.
It may not be a one conversation thing.
Yeah, they still ain't gonna hear you.
Yeah, no. Now see, that's not put everybody in the same box. Okay. So now if we want to cast the net, some people Some people just ain't ready. Okay. So
No.
you know what I'm saying? So some people just ain't ready. So I agree. I'm not saying this is the case with every single situation. Some folks are just too far gone and ain't much you can do with them. All you can do is possibly drop a seed. And at some point, maybe they get mad enough and refer back to the energy that you laid out there, and it'll come up and regurgitate. But there are some who may just be that's stuck in that particular battle, but not necessarily in that war. See, like I said, we are at war, but when you're engaging with another person, that's a battle or a conflict. That's not the overall thing. So I'm looking beyond the specific conflict that I'm in right now, because I may lose that battle for the sake of winning the war. So again, if I'm recognizing that I'm at war, that don't mean that I need to feel like I have to win every battle. So as long as I'm looking beyond the current situation, which is what a visionary should do, then there's an opportunity for me to take a defense down. If I can take that defenses down and I can get this person to allow me to borrow that energy, to feed it and to feed off of it in order to make it greater from the stance of where we're going as a collective, then I'm going to work at that direction. Now, again, some people are so far gone that they are on a path of internal self-destruction. So anything that you do would just add to that self-destruction. So in a situation like that, you have to know that you just need to exit. You just need to exit. But from a general standpoint, what I'm saying is, if my intention is to win somebody over so that I can teach them something, I got to know that just simply because I have some good information and some good knowledge, or what I want to refer to as the righteous perspective, don't mean that I have the right to shove it down somebody's throat. It does not mean that they may be in a place within themselves to where they are ready to receive it at that moment in time. So I can't be so caught up in my ego that I feel like just because I am ultimately in the right perspective or headed down the right path, that person must yield to my direction right now. Because now I'm going to personalize. And if I overly personalize it, then I'm going to keep them on the defensive. So even if I'm telling them, hey, this house is about to burn down, we need to leave. Oh, well, why you want me to get out the house? You just trying to, you see what I'm saying? And now all of a sudden, they going to burn up, even though what I have to tell them is the truth. So from a psychological standpoint, you have to deal with taking somebody's defense down. And that's the same thing that the enemy does to us anyway. They exploit weaknesses. So when I'm engaging in a conversation with an individual, I can't expect them to not recognize or to not go at it with their defenses already up, because they don't want to be exploited, for better or for worse. It is a natural tendency for us to resist something that is new, or to resist something that we're unfamiliar with, because often what happens is that we're afraid of what we don't know. We're afraid of the fact that what we've been living and how we've been going about something is actually detrimental. Some people are not ready to face that within themselves just yet. So sometimes you got to coach them to it, and you got to let them know that you're on their side and you're gonna be there with them through this, versus them thinking that you're going to be doing this to create condemnation against them. And see, that's the thing. When you talk about a situation where people have been mentally broken down to where everything is about condemnation, everything is about trying to beat you down for the sake of beating you down, and then we take the capitalistic environment that creates the individual against the individual. Well, now that individual being against that individual becomes a lifestyle. So then how can a family unit operate off two individuals simply being confined in the same space? Because that's what the definition of a family is right now. Two individuals forced to live with each other. So then that concept of a family, or people trying to come together to be a family, is really just two folks stuck in close quarters. So these are two individuals in a competing relationship with one another, which is why compromise would be the thought out perspective on that note. Because I'm an individual, you an individual, and we combat each other, and I'm going to win over you. That's my game. So again, you have destroyed the family unit and you have destroyed the semblance of what it means to be a family structure. You just got two individuals, one being male and one being female, but they're still two individuals doing this, both being alphas. And so to me, that answer goes to being able to take down the defenses so that the people are able to learn what you got to offer. And so there's a certain element of humility that has to go along with that, because they have to not view you as being their enemy. Because as long as I view the person that's at the opposite end of the table from me as my enemy or my competitor, then I'm supposed to be on the defensive. And so I'm gonna drop that and drop the mic, and we need to let E pick it up.
Well, I got one more. I got another one. And I'm gonna ask this to E. I'm gonna ask this to E because I got two for E. And one, the first one I'm gonna ask from E is, do Black women owe anything to the Black community?
What?
Do Black women owe anything to the community? And what I mean, let me clarify what I'm saying. That was a question that I heard in another YouTube video. Do Black women owe anything to the Black community, to Black men? Because now essentially Black women are the queens, the goddesses, and they see themselves as the prize. You know, you'll hear here's some catchphrases that people say, that you'll hear women saying, I'm the prize, I know my worth, I know what I'm bringing to the table, I'm dating with a purpose. All these cool sounding catchphrases, to me is a whole bunch of BS, because they sound good. I'm dating with a purpose. Everybody dates with a purpose. Just because that person's purpose ain't your purpose don't mean that their purpose is less important. Everybody dates with a purpose. Nobody dates for the hell of it. Everybody got a purpose, even if it's just trying to get some. Everybody dates with a purpose. But so the point is like they move in a way that they believe that the community or that Black men owe them something. I'm asking, do Black women owe the community anything? Do Black women have a debt or a responsibility to Black men?
I don't know. I think that's something that they have to decide, which is an impossibility, but that's a decision they have to make amongst themselves.
I'm talking about from a general perspective, point of view, a general perspective. You have no viewpoint on it at all. You don't think that, do Black men owe anything to the Black community?
It's hard for me to answer that anymore. I mean, I guess if you want to talk in terms of principles and high ideals and all of those things, yeah. Yes to both directions, yeah. But if you get into a more practical survival perspective, no. You know, it's all defined by your objective, your purpose. Are you in pursuit of developing the small I or the big I? What are your goals? What do you even see yourself as a part of the so-called idea of a Black community? I mean, if the Black community is kaput, I think it was War said something along those lines, the quote unquote Black community, because there is no real Black community. Everything, there'll never be another onslaught like Black Wall Street, not because white folks have changed and healed their ways, but because there are no fucking Black Wall Streets. So there is no Black community to owe anything to at this point in time. Everything that we would call the Black community is white owned, white operated, white governed. It's their communities by extension. If you want to talk about it in terms of ideals, will our communities ever come back? Will our communities ever heal? Will our communities ever see what they were then? Yeah, we all owe something to the greater good, to the greater cause, to the greater purpose. But until a person accepts that and understands or even questions that, then practically no.
Second question. In a past video we did on my channel, the one I said I'm gonna put the link in the comments when we talked about we discussed the young sister and the Prada Gucci and all that nonsense. One statement you said on that video was, if sisters keep this nonsense up, I've been trying my best to be faithful to black women, but if sisters keep this nonsense up, I'm gonna have to go outside of the race and date something else, date another race of woman. What did you mean by that? If they keep what up, and why, or what point of view are you coming from that would make that the answer?
Well, again, a practical perspective. I mean, at some point, ultimately, a man wants to have a woman in his life. I don't care who the fuck he is and how hard he tries to, all that bullshit. A man wants to have a companion and a partner. And if you try your best to maintain what you know to be the right thing, then you come to a point where you have a choice to make between staying with those ideals or being true to who you are as an individual, what your needs and wants and desires are. At some point, there's a trade-off. And I mean, I meant exactly that. Sisters, to a large degree, are full of shit. You know, I don't care for Kevin Samuel's approach at all. I saw him call some sister trash, and I think that was bullshit. You're not liberating or helping or doing anything. And that's been his approach in general, very combative coming out the gate. It's bullshit, and I don't think it's productive at all. But yeah, I've definitely considered going outside. But then again, if you step back from it, it's a whole lot of dumbass sisters that are, as a matter of fact, I had a debate, wasn't even a debate, but a back and forth with some jackasses on Instagram telling me that I'm not really African or I'm not black, I'm biracial, I'm mixed, I'm something else. So according to that logic of those sisters, and it was sisters that was on there having this back and forth with, so according to their logic, I can get whoever the fuck I want to get because I'm not an African, I'm not black. So if this is the nonsense that those who are charged by nature, not by choice, but by nature, with being the first teachers of the next generation, then where does that leave me? Where does that leave somebody that's wanting to keep it in-house, so to speak, but keeps running into the same bullshit over and over again, the same value system? I'll tell sisters in a minute, I'm never going to be in a position to give you diamonds, but I'll share my tomatoes from my garden with you. Where's your value system? And over, the value system is not being able to provide in that way, or to give and to develop and plant seeds above and beyond the physical. It's about being able to assimilate into the system that she wants to be a part of. And so that, I mean, that's the nonsense. You know, very few sisters, beyond the conversation, beyond what it sounds like, beyond the fluff, are willing to subject themselves to the lifestyle that it takes. This is to ask me if you have, because she knew I was raising rabbits and quail in the garden and everything. And I told her why. And her question was, well, what if that never happens? What will you have gained? And I knew then, well, I knew from her response to what I said, but that mindset, that not understanding what is learned by returning to a way of life that's conducive to actually being productive, as opposed to going to jobs and depending on somebody else, the slave versus the liberated mindset. There's so very few sisters left in this world that understand the value of that type of lifestyle. There was a time in history when a man could define himself and his value to the community based on what he could pull out of the earth. The whole idea of dowry, they like to make fun of it and say, oh, this guy bought his wife from her father for 18 cows, not understanding that he gave the cows as a display to the family of what he could provide for their daughter, what he could provide in terms of a family, to show and prove that he was worthy of taking this woman's hand in marriage and adding himself to their family line and adding her to his family line. Because at a point in time, it was a man going into the world and creating a smaller universe for his asset, for his woman to rule over. Whereas now it's a matter of a man going out and appeasing the oppressor, whether it's going to a job or being an entrepreneur, because even if you're an entrepreneur, you're still paying taxes, you're still abiding by certain laws, you're still, you know, attempting to become a part of the bourgeoisie class. So it's still an appeal to the oppressor. And sisters have gotten so far away from the value system that keeps us intact, understanding that someone who can truly be self-sufficient, because an entrepreneur is not self-sufficient at all. Entrepreneur is still dependent on market forces and all those other things, whereas someone who can go and actually pull food out of the ground essentially is letting the world know I can manage, I can create, I can build without someone else. That's freedom, that's liberation, that's getting away from the system of oppression. But the more and more sisters that I see buying into, even my own daughters, I see buying into the bullshit of this world. And like War said, each generation gets weaker and weaker. You know, Garvey had millions of supporters and members around the world. Elijah and Malcolm had, you know, hundreds, thousands of members and whatnot around the world. Huey and them had hundreds. New Black Panther Party had far less than that. We've seen generationally, those of us who are willing to take on certain lifestyles and do certain things in an attempt to get us back on track become fewer and fewer for various reasons. Likewise, you know, sisters are not valuing those things that a man can actually control. I can go out and affect what grows in my garden and put food on the table. What animals I raise, I can go out and affect. But for me to go out and affect a dollar sign, essentially I have to hang to whatever degree, I have to hang my balls on the front door. When I go into work, I leave my balls in the car. Because if a sister goes in and she stands her ground and she's assertive, she's seen as that black bitch. If a brother goes in, stands his ground and is assertive, he catches a case or a bullet to the back of the head, one of the two. So the dynamic is far different and we don't understand that. So yeah, I'm still on that fence. I still find myself wavering back and forth. Because yeah, like I said, a man wants a woman in his life and I'm 50 years old. You know, I'm not 20, 25 with a big pond with all the time in the world. I don't have time for this shit anymore. I just don't have time for the bullshit. You know, and I guess my bottom line is either sisters can step up to the plate or fuck y'all. I'm at that point. You know, y'all give me one more nut and y'all can have this shit back. Don't care, you know.
Was that a Dr. Dre paraphrase?
Huh?
No, I said, was that a Dr. Dre paraphrase? Dr. Dre said, what did he say? In a few more platinum plaques, fuck rap, you could have it back.
Absolutely.
Well, all right, I'm gonna ask you the same question. Not the same question, but do black women, do sisters owe anything to the black community and to black men?
My answer is not just yes, but damn yes. I think because, but see, he answered the question on that. And I agree with that. You know, we're talking about a theory in a progressive practice that some of us are still fighting versus the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that people want to operate like individuals. And if you want to operate like an individual, then you don't owe nobody nothing. That is the game of the individual. But if you want to go back to nature, you want to go back to the perspective of us being in harmony with nature, then you as an individual have the obligation to a family. And as a family, you have an obligation to a community. And that is what, you know, when we talk about creation, that is what we're talking about. And when we're talking about being in a position of being in control of oneself as it applies to the development of the world around you, then that's what you're talking about. So yes, we have those obligations. And my position is that we have to recognize that as an individual, is that we have an obligation to the family. And as a family, we have an obligation to the community. So that goes back to me again to the whole aspect of the realignment that must take place. Because as long as the individual don't feel like they owe anybody else a damn thing, then that will perpetuate and that will destroy the family. And if that destroys a family, then there's no way a family can produce a community. So we have to remove ourselves from this selfish mentality that as an individual, we don't owe the next lineage, the next line up, anything else. That's again, I feel like that is another concept that has been weaponized and has been very effective in its ability to destroy us as a people and to destroy humanity in terms of its progression. So yes, we owe the family, and yes, the family, we owe the community. Period, point blank. Get over it and deal with it.
You know, and
the
I'm
only
gonna say
obligations,
this.
I think the only obligations we have are the obligations we accept. If there is no desire, if there is no desire to rebuild the Black community, because we, especially ever since integration, we've had this bullshit fantasy of how we can miscegenate into the greater culture, the greater community, the greater society, and somehow all of a sudden now we're talking about, oh, the Black community this and the Black community that. There is no Black community if you're going to integrate. That's the whole point of so-called integration, is to disperse the Black community. So in that regard, you know, to reiterate, no, they don't know shit if their desire is to integrate. If in the way that they mean integrate. If your desire is to rebuild the community and see strong Black men and Black women and Black blah, 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 if those are the things that you want to see, then you have an obligation. And to a large degree, sisters need to, you know, a lot of them, I've had experiences with some very intelligent sisters who unfortunately thought they were smarter than me. And I don't say that, and I don't even want to say smarter. I want to say more aware, but not in the sense, not that they weren't intelligent as me or anything like that, but their arrogance put them in a place where they felt like, can't no man tell me shit. When the reality is, sisters especially need to learn to sit down and shut the fuck up. Because there are a lot of things that they don't fucking understand. They get in the way, and they need to be taught all over again, you know. And that's that's just been my experience. As smart as you might be, there are things that you are not going to be able to grasp in your current mind state. And until you learn how to bow down and realize that you're not bowing down to the oppressor or to the enemy, you're bowing down to yourself, to your external strength, then, you know, fuck it. Go integrate, have your product, get a white boy, and, you know, I get whatever I get.
And, you know, I can kind of agree with that. Ironically, that's what Kevin Samuels is saying. I know you feel to go off with that. That's what the guy's saying. But let me say this, and then I'm going to wrap this thing up, because I think we done said it out. I think we done broke it down to where it can't really be broken anymore. But now I want to say this. I'm going to say this, that the whole concept of the individual is a fantasy. It's an ideal, because human beings by nature are gregarious. There is no way human beings would have survived and become the dominant species on the planet without the ability to cooperate with each other and have unity. Human beings are not the strongest things in the wild. We don't fly the best. We don't swim the best. We can do nothing better than an animal when it comes to physicality. So we had to come together as a group. We had to do it. We had to create communities. And then we was able to utilize our intelligence and our unity to actually become the predominant thing on the planet. Without that, think about it. A few thousand years ago, the worst thing, and we still have that in us genetically right now today. The worst thing that could have possibly happened in the wilderness was for you to be ostracized by the overall group. That was a death sentence. If the group saw you as weird, strange, or against the laws, the rules, the principles, and the morals of the group, and the group kicked you out, you had to walk in the wilderness by yourself, and you was going to be killed. Period, point blank. The group provided some safety. The group is where your education came from, your knowledge, your understanding of the role that you're supposed to play. And for everything that you have about everything that the human being gained came from the group. Boys learned to be men from men. And the ideal was that each generation of men was supposed to become stronger because they didn't have to relearn those lessons. They could build off the lessons that had been passed down to them. Girls learned to become women from the women. This is the way that the human being was designed. What we are doing now with this whole concept of the individual, this idea, we always talk about Western ideas and Western this, and this is one of the predominant Western ideas. That individual, that never existed. That was made up. Western sociologists and philosophers made that ideal up of the individual. It was made up, and I know that might be hard to hear for people that has always thought as individuals. That might be hard to hear, but if you do any real research in history, the individual concept popped up at a certain point of time. It didn't always exist. We never thought in those ways as individuals. So it takes us out of our nature. And even now, as much as individualistic as we say we are, none of us are truly self-made. None of us are surviving on our own. Even he just expressed it. Hell, if you're making all the money in the world, you're making it from a job. If you're the best entrepreneur in the world, it's because you got great customers. We need the group in some way, form, or fashion, even if we lie to ourselves and trying to make ourselves believe we don't. So that individual idea it has never worked for human beings. And I do believe in progress. You know, me and E are a little bit different on this subject. I'm probably not gonna I got a horticulture degree and I'm probably not gonna plant a tomato. You know, to me, I have an advantage when it comes to going to the store and just buying one, you know, in my viewpoint. And that's not knocking E, because one of the things that I used to tell the brothers in prison was that we should all gain trades: carpentry, horticulture, electrician, all of them. And then when we come back to our neighborhoods, be the first dudes to teach the youngsters in our neighborhoods how to plant, how to do electrical work, how to do carpentry work. See, when I was growing up, and I'm supposed to wrap it up, but when I was growing up, the OGs that I heard about, you know, I came out the porch and I heard these names of these great dudes, JB, Pokey. I heard these names. I wanted to see these dudes. When these dudes came out of prison, what they brought me was a better fighting game, how to do 100 push-ups, and how to drink a beer without creating suds in the bottle. And I used to tell the brothers in prison, you need to be the OG everybody heard about. When you come home, you need to teach them how to wire a house. You got to be able to teach them how to build a house, how to build a wall. You need to be able to teach these principles. You need to be able to teach them how to crossbreed a watermelon and a cantaloupe. You need to be able to take that to your hood if you love your hood so much, you know. And that's just and that takes us back to that concept of how human beings really develop. That's how we really grow. That ideal of the individual, I think it's a weak ideal. I believe that it doesn't really work. And nobody that say they stand alone and all that old tough sounding stuff, nobody who says any of that really means it, because they need somebody else for something. Nobody really means that. And that's all I got to say. Unless you brothers have anything to say, I'm going to call this a wrap.
Good.
I would say thank you for that, Brother Sight, and on that concept of the individual, because again, bottom line of that is it was basically introduced to put us at odds with one another, to put the humanity off course and out of alignment. And right there, if you don't get nothing from this show, this segment today, recognize that you are at war and you need to look yourself in the mirror and figure out, do I want to continue being at war with myself, and operate as this individual? Or do I want to get humanity back on track and look toward future generations? That's all I got to say. All power to the people on that.